Alright, is everything working? Can we check in if everything is working? Blah dee blah blah blah. Okay, we're gonna try to make it as an intimate event as possible. Hold on. Let me see if this thing's working. Okay. Everything is working, right? Okay. Is there anything incriminating on my desktop before I accidentally share it with everybody? No? 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 Alright. How many people are in here? Welcome everybody. Just as a quick announcement, I know there's only like a handful of us in here, which is what I prefer because it keeps it nice and intimate. I'm gonna need to start streaming on Tuesday nights as opposed to Mondays. Mondays are just way too hectic after hours, after my work hours, and there's too many things that I need to get to in the evening time, and it's going to be near impossible to maintain Mondays. So Tuesdays is a nice, one day later, it's not too bad. Hope that's okay with everybody. What's the other thing? Tuesdays instead of Mondays. And I think that's it. Welcome to this Tuesday night, this ongoing Tuesday night stream. Hopefully I can have some level of sustainability depending on my work. Here's the thing. I have a very difficult time prioritizing streaming only because, and I don't know if I told you guys this the last time that we were talking about this, I have a hard time prioritizing streaming because at any given time, I only can manage about 3 things on my plate. That third thing has a tendency to always come off in the most mediocre fashion because the first 2 things are the task that gets the majority of my time and energy. So that third thing has a tendency to fall off my plate, and I gotta be honest with you, streaming is the 4th thing that I need to worry about. I think things will lighten up a bit once I get deeper into issue 5 of ARC ATHENA. And that's going to be really, really cool. I'll have more time to I'll have more mental capacity to dedicate to streaming. What else is there? I can talk to you guys about what I want to get your guys' vote, or at least your insight, not necessarily vote, but your insight on what my reward tiers are going to be. I put it in front of a handful of people. I think I know for sure I put it in front of Rob, Mr. Rob Arnold, Mr. Replicator himself. I put it in front of Tim Lim, who is the co-author, co-creator of Common America. Both projects, by the way, if you're not backing them already, please go do so. I put the link in my chat, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't want to send you the wrong campaign, but look for Replicator in regards to Rob Arnold's campaign. Look for, and I don't think I need to tell you this, but in regards to Tim, go look for Common America. I think he just launched what is it? Like, it's not a combo book. What am I talking? Like a team-up book? It's Common America characters and his first IP, which is, what's the one with the rabbit? Or the bunnies? Anyway, I put the tiers in front of them, and I said, well, what do you guys think? And I got really great feedback. As a matter of fact, I also put it in front of Clint Stoker, Sweetcast, Mr. Sweetcast himself. And the reason why I put it in front of these gentlemen is I'm a huge proponent of getting the feedback of people who have or are currently running super successful campaigns. And success doesn't necessarily automatically mean the dollar value. Dollar value is great. But I'm also looking at my primary sort of win condition, if you'd call it that, is being able to engage with fans and, more importantly, deliver on the hype, so to speak. And I use the term hype very loosely. So I put it in front of people who have some level of success with their campaigns. Rob, Tim, Clint. I'm trying to think of the 2 other people that I put in front of. Crap. But I got really effective. I got really invaluable feedback from them, and I thought I'd run it by you guys. And I dig it up on my phone here. I'm trying to dig it up on my phone and see if I can read back to you if I can read back to you what I wrote to them, and you guys tell me if it makes any sense. Cool? Here we go. First I gotta find it. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Oh, before I get started, let me say hi to everybody. Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. I don't know if you guys are one day ahead of me or one day behind, but if so, good afternoon and good morning to all of you. I'm going to scroll all the way back up. Hello, Oz, Great Sage. Good morning to you, or good evening, afternoon. I'll just say hello. Good evening, my time. Good evening. Praetor? Have I ever seen you in chat? And if I have, hello, welcome back. If not, welcome. Thank you for being here. How are you? Let's see. I am Mac. Yes, you are. Thank you so much for being here. So thank you for joining us. K Manifesto. Good evening, friend. How are you? There he is, the man, the myth, Mr. Two First Names. Mr. Rob Arnold. How are you? William C. Thank you so much. Vocals on, video off. Are you requesting vocals on, video off? I could do that. I could turn video off. Is it Kakuwa Mwanza? Hello, how are you? Welcome. Good evening to you, sir. And or madam. IBI, how are you? Good evening. Thank you for joining me again. I really appreciate your company. Let's see here. Who else have I missed? Everything Shivers. Hello, good evening. Great icon, great avatar. Every time that I need to squeeze one out, that's what my face looks like. Hello, the Initiative. Just want to say I absolutely love your Avengers art. Especially love how you do Thor, Iron Man, and Cap. I really hope Marvel gets you on one of those books someday. Remind me, like, as soon as I'm done saying hello to everybody, remind me of my insight and my attitude towards working for Marvel and DC. Strikeboy99, welcome back. Hello, how are you, my friend? Sweet Tooth, hello. Always great to see you. There she is. The lifesaver, the person that's going to keep me from drowning tonight. Bellatrix herself, hello, how are you? Dom Gomez, good evening, how are you? Miss Agnes Garbasca, I consider Agnes to be my cryptocurrency future planning Sherpa. So welcome, Agnes, how are you? Oh, thank you so much for everybody who's this is Common America. I'm gonna scroll back up. And this is Mr. Rob Arnold's Replicator 3 project. Thank you very much, Belle. You are awesome. Like I said, you're going to keep me from sinking tonight. Hello? Oh, I put it... Did I put... This is the... Hello, Pete. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but Pete and I had a great back and forth via direct message on Twitter the other night. And every time that I talk to individuals like Pete, like Rob, like Tim, but not last night specifically, speaking would be such a great rush of inspiration, being able to talk shop and industry with him, and he really had his parting words sometimes gets me out of the own cloud that is in my own head, you know, like, oh man, I wonder how things are going to turn out, blah, 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 and Pete's just like, you got this, man. And I love that. So thank you very much, friend. Thank you for being here. And by the way, I got your care package. Totally unnecessary. I already told you the first time when you offered it, I said it's totally unnecessary. I'm happy to contribute to whatever sort of thing that you got going on, and I don't need anything back. But thank you so much for that. The funny thing is, like, it's a Blu-ray of one of the titles of being published by you. So first of all, most importantly, congratulations on getting that off the ground. Congratulations on getting it turned into a major motion picture, but it's a DVD, or it's a Blu-ray. And I was like, oh, look how quaint a Blu-ray. I started to think like, oh, this is awesome, I'm gonna watch it later, and it dawned on me that I don't have a Blu-ray player in my entire house. I don't, and then for the life of me, I can't remember the last time that I had a Blu-ray player in my entire house, but I promise I'll watch it. Anyway, hello, Jim Cox. Thank you very much for swinging by. How are you? Okay, am I all caught up? Is it still a small room? Lucas, how are you? Hello, Mr. Kennedy. Thanks to make my life better. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your company. Lord Crackhead, that is a royalty title. Not just crackhead, but of a crackhead of esteem, a lord. Goku, how are you, Kennedy baby? Oh, I didn't know we were personal. I didn't know we were so intimate. Hello, everybody. Okay. Is that it? Everybody caught up? Am I caught up with everyone? Okay, so what was I going to say? Yes, we're going to go over the tiers, and you guys, let me read through the whole thing. And if you guys can sort of take notes, mental notes or whatever, physical notes, and you guys can give me your feedback, I'd really appreciate it. By the way, is my voice being drowned out by the music? That's one. Is there an echo like there typically is? That's two. No echo? You guys would have told me by now, I figured. And you would have told me if my music was too loud, if it was too loud to begin with. Yes? Yes? Okay, good. All right, we have about 45 minutes to go through this because I figure the last hours I typically try to do 9 p.m. on down, my time. I try to paint or draw. Besides, after this, I need to go over the pages so I can show you guys my progress on ARC Athena 4 team. I'm on the 4th issue and I'm down to my last 7 pages. And then it's done. Out of 49, 50, I think it is. Out of, well, maybe 48, 49. 49 pages of ARC Athena 4. I'm 7 pages away from being done. So I'm still on track to launch issue number 1 to launch the first campaign to issue number 1 in September. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. I'm going to knock on wood and hopefully I don't fall behind. So here we go. Take notes. All right, so they're the early adapter for the campaign, right? This is for issue 1 at launch. For the first 72 hours, I'm going to give you a percentage off of your entire purchase. Does that make sense? And that means everything on the tier list gets a percentage off. I've yet to decide what that percentage is. Probably somewhere around 15, maybe less, maybe more. We'll see how the finances all work out. Option 1. Tier 1, option 1. Keep in mind, I wrote option 1, but it's like tier 1 or whatever. Okay, so here we go. Option 1, volume 1 of ARC Athena only, 64-page, hardcover, comic size, and it's rush delivery to you. Right? That means it's going, as soon as you click that there button, we're going to have a bunch of them already pre-printed, pre-produced. That sounds awful. Anyway, so we're going to have a bunch of them produced already. I can't remember the last number that made a lot of sense by way of price per unit. But we're going to have them in warehouses already. And as soon as you click that button, we send one right out to you. So that's going to go out to you, expedited mail, right? Or we're going to try to get it to you in about 4 weeks within the continental United States, and an expedited mail anywhere else in the world. Does that make sense? Okay, option 2 or tier 2. It's volume 1 of ARC Athena, right? Plus the ARC Athena Black and White Artist Edition, which is going to be a little bit bigger. Probably I'm aiming for 9x12, right? And that's going to be standard delivery throughout. So here's the thing that my friend asked me. I can't remember who asked me. It's like, so if I order ARC Athena 1 in that expedited, just the book by itself. If I go for option 2, right? Am I going to get the volume 1 in the same space as the expedited option, in the same manner that I'm going to get option 1? So that's option 2, right? ARC Athena, the book, and then ARC Athena, the artist edition, which is just all black and white, no color, no dialogue, right? And they asked me, hey, if I'm going to get option 2, am I going to get the same expedited or rush delivery service as ARC Athena 1? I don't think so. If you go for option 2, all of it gets mailed out to you all at the same time. So however long that takes, I'm going to guess about 2 months. Okay, option 3 or tier 3. ARC Athena Volume 1, my soon-to-be produced brand new sketchbook, which is called Cover 2022. All the images that I've done during quarantine, we're going to put it into a sketchbook about, gosh, I can't remember what the size is, 6.5, 7.5, there's 7.5 by 7.5 sketchbook. And I don't know if you guys have seen my sketchbook or not, but if you would like to go see it, please go to essentialsequential.com, look in the sketchbook section. You can see all the previous year's covers. They're literally called Cover 2021, Cover 2020, Cover 2029, or Cover 2019, blah, blah, blah. And Belle, if you could drop a link to that section of Essential Sequential, I'd really appreciate it. And that will be standard delivery in the US and worldwide. Option 3, or actually option 4, right? It's volume number 1 and the limited edition bust of Devon Lux, who's the leader of the leader of ARC ATHENA. And if you want to have a point of reference of approximately the height, not necessarily the finish, it's going to, you can look up a Bowen mini bust on Google or whatever your search engine of choice. You can look up Bowen mini bust for marble. It's going to be about that tall, right? And I think we're going to be getting those produced very, very soon. I don't think there's an opportunity to get them painted because the overhead is going to be insanely high. And then option 5? Option 5? Okay, here we go. Option 5 is ARC ATHENA Volume 1 and a 9x12 original art commission in Copic marker. So if you want to know what my Copic marker bust looks like on 9x12, right? You can go to my Instagram, instagram.com/Eric Canetti. Go look at the Copic marker, gray marker rendering somewhere in there. That's going to be from like the chest on up, sternum on up. So that's going to be option 5 or tier 5, right? And that's going to be standard delivery worldwide. And then the option 6, right? Option 6 is going to be, and by the way, to give you a preface on this, there's no tangible original art for ARC ATHENA. I did everything. My pre-production, my pipeline is all digital. So I'm only going to produce X amount of ARC ATHENA related original art. That's going to be, I can show you. Let me try not to break anything and try to show you this stuff. Stand by. It's gonna kinda, sorta, oh geez, do I even have an example here? It's gonna be kind of look like, it's gonna kind of look like this. It's gonna be in this size, 11x17. Can you guys see this? Is it focusing nicely? Can you guys see that all right? See that? This is the last thing I worked on before I started working on ARC ATHENA, right? So it's gonna be on this colored paper, or on this, it's gonna be colored paper. I'm gonna render it in gray and do the whole production on it. And you can actually see some of this stuff on my Instagram as well, instagram.com/Eric Canetti. And then the last one, and I think I'm gonna get made fun of for this, but I'm going to have an option in which you get ARC ATHENA Volume 1, and then if this is your jam, and this is not going to be for everybody, okay? But maybe there's sort of a nuance that can add to it, like for instance, let me just give it to you. Like, so it's this particular arc is 45 minutes of me doing a portfolio review on whatever piece of art that you may want, or me doing an original piece of art for you live in about 45 minutes. Does that make sense? Whatever it is that you're into. Maybe it's not for you because you're not an artist. Maybe it's not for you because it's not within your means or whatever it is. But maybe that's a possibility. Does everybody get that? Was that clear? Okay, I'm gonna scroll up, just in case I miss anything. No music. What in the what? There's an air sound. Oh, that's my fan. That is my fan. Only because, for whatever reason, the air conditioner, central air is working everywhere else in my house except here. So please forgive my fan. I can turn it down if it's bothering you at all. Okay. Let's see. What button am I not hitting? Can I turn? Whoop. Can I turn this up? Can you hear music now? Not to say that I care about the music so much. As long as I don't lose, voice, I'm okay. Is that okay? There we go. We should be able to hear it better. Just a tiny bit better. Yes? Okay, here we go. Hello, Black Rose. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate your company. I'm just trying to get caught up with chatting. I said so many things earlier that I'm like, I really hope people aren't chiming in at a specific in regards to a specific option or a specific tier and giving feedback to that, because this is going to be a hot mess. Okay. Hello, how are you? What about? Ahoy, good sire. Ahoy, one and all. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Add digital book overseas. Shipping is crippling. Yeah, I know. I know it. There's got to be an opportunity. I don't know if some people are just okay with having a digital book, but I don't know if I've ever seen a digital comic that, by way of its presentation, by way of its experience, wasn't lackluster. So until I can find a presentation in which you're like, it feels natural or it feels like intuitive, I feel bad just giving people PDFs, you know? I feel really, really poor about it. Skip Edwards, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your company. Welcome. I appreciate it. Mr. Eric Weathers, I tuned into your stream all of, 20 minutes ago? No, more than that. About 40 minutes ago, you had Clint on and you were encouraging him to take a more advantageous position in regards to leveraging the fan base that is Comicscape. Amazing, amazing pep talk. I was inspired by it. El Padrino, how are you? Good evening. Okay, here's the questions. Thank goodness. Is Volume 1 Issue 1 or Issue 1 through 5? Volume 1 is Issue 1. So Issue 1, Volume 1 is interchangeable until it goes to print, which I finally decided. It's either Volume 1, Book 1 or Issue 1. I don't know what's going to be the least confusing or most succinct. I'd like to hear from you guys in regards to that. That'd be kind of awesome. I haven't decided yet. Oh, by the way, I just saw Eric Weathers. Eric, prepare. There is a deluge of work coming your way from me, and I know you're in the midst of doing your pre-production for not just yours, but also a lot of different professional people's books. But 4 issues are probably going to be sent to you all at once, all at the same time. You've heard Copics aren't archival quality. That is the honest to goodness truth. So by the time it arrives to you, it's going to be beholden upon you to make sure to protect those things because they're not as light fast as they could be. My suggestion is framing it in such a way that you have all the UV protection by way of the glass or by way of the ceramic. It's not ceramic. It's oh gosh, it's not glass, but the cover that goes on top of the image. Why can't I think of the word? Anyway, I'll be honest, I couldn't follow everything you said. I think I'm just dumb though. I'll probably watch this after it's been uploaded, though, to get a better grasp of it. It sounds promising. Thank you so much for that. Very, very kind of you. If at any point, see what I'm looking for, even if you didn't manage to catch all of it, similar to, who said it earlier when they said, hey, allow for a digital copy, right? I love feedback like that because it's great food for thought. If there's something in there that made you go like, wait a second, you're gonna package it with like Kentucky Fried Chicken? I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea, but you might not think to package it in Kentucky Fried Chicken is a good idea. But that's what I'm looking for. If something kind of like, oh, that's a yellow flag, I'd love to hear from you. Edwin the Ace, hello, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for being here. Mr. Eddie Winkler, how are you? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your company. And Mr. Jose Garcia, I love people who use their entire full name. Thank you so much. You are in the midst of the storm. Bring it right on. I am taking, I think the next 3 months is going to be an editorial pass, depending on how much heavy lifting I need to do in regards to additions to it so that the narrative just reads a little bit better, or if it can be done on the writing end to make the narrative a little bit better, either or. I'm not against adding pages to make the story story read a little bit better. So we'll see. Next 3 months. If you read PDFs on CD DisplayX in PC, it's just perfect for me, and I read all my manga and comics on it. Sure. I was actually thinking about, and I'm sure this is somewhere out there, it's just a matter of buying the license, of like doing a version in which I upload all the images and it does it in such a way where it's reader format, where you can just click the little, if you ever go to Amazon, they show a little preview of the book, there's a little right and left This is right, this is left. Right and left arrow, and just keep clicking on that and it flips for you. There's like a little flip animation. I don't know if that's too fancy, but I'm sure there's something out there like that. That'd be kind of fun. Wilson Debuha, hello, how are you? The word you were probably thinking of is acrylic. Yes, the answer is yes. Hello. Captain J.D. Hook, how are you? Good evening. Okay, so that was it. And I don't know if you guys heard anything in there that sounded too off-putting. I know I went through it very quickly. But the one that gets me excited is the idea that we're going to have a handful, not just like X amount of thousands of copies already pre-printed out and ready to go out to you. So, is that it? Am I all caught up on that front? Can we show some pages now? All right, let's show some pages. Let's see if I didn't break anything. Hey, look at all the pages. Where was I? Where did I leave off? Last time that we were all together, did I show you any of the flim flam pages at all? Where was I? Do you guys remember where I was? Can I just start on page 22? This is, okay, so issue number 5, without any additions, without the editorial, or without the editing pass, where I could quite possibly add more pages, is about page 43. So issue 4, 43 pages long. It's probably going to be more. We're probably going to add more to it. And whatever I can do to get it closer to 64 pages, because each book is going to be about 64 pages. So there's probably going to be a good chunk of supplementary material in the back, you know, a bunch of developmental stuff, designs, those kinds of things. I figured those are great little bonuses that don't necessarily have to be a supplement independent of the book. They can actually be in the book itself. So that's the plan. 64 pages, each and every single issue. And right now this one is coming in at 43, so it's light by about, what, 19? 19. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to pick a page. I hope you guys don't mind. What did I say? Page 22? Okay, I'll pick this one. So this is a double page spread, and I can't remember what double page spread this is, but there's a bunch of double page spreads and splash pages for issue number 4, because this is when everybody fights. So this is that big scene. I almost akin it to like, well, we're nearing the third act, right? Third act is going to be so much bigger, but with so much more narrative to it, right? So, but this is like that opening, please forgive me, but that opening scene in Transformers Dark of the Moon, when that giant tendril robot was like, no, that's third act, when that tendril robot with Shockwave in its head was just destroying everything. That left such a great impression on me. I'm like, if Michael Bay is good at something, it seems like this, you know? Big, bombastic, loud, fucking, there's so much happening, there's so many cool shots, there's so many cool compositions. Okay. Hello? Oh, I actually opened this? What a weirdo. Okay, here we go. You guys see that all right? Okay. I'm just going to flip through, because I really do want to, I'm actually going to take a little bit of time for myself and just paint a little bit tonight, and we'll see if I can get to that Skeletor or not. Told you there was a bunch of splash pages. Yeah, I know. So the thing was, here's something stupid and ridiculous. I thought like, oh man, these are all going to be splash pages, so I should be able to breeze through these pretty dang quickly, right? The answer is no. In concept, because I was thinking, well, if I can do a page of 5 panels in about in less than, maybe 6-7 hours, then doing one giant panel shouldn't be all that bad. The thing that I didn't take into account, and this is because my brain is stupid, is that since it's a splash page, I have to actually slow down and make sure all the detail is as crisp and as deliberate as possible. Because in some of the panels, you're like, oh, I can get away with sort of like, indicating something in place. But with splash pages, everything is in the forefront. Everything is in high focus. I have to get all the details of their mouths and their eyes and their eyelashes and their boots and their bolts. Jeez Louise. So anyway, in as much as I thought I was going to save time, I didn't really. Here's another double page. Oh, by the way, spoilers. Spoilers. Cool. Somebody asked earlier, where am I going to put the dialogue? I'm like, dialogue? What's dialogue? And I was talking to my very good friend John Amour offline, and he was saying, you know, after I previewed for him issue 1 through issue 3 in PDF form, we were going over it, and I was so damn hyped over the pages. He's like, dude, I can tell that you love drawing this. Like, you just love drawing this series. And I'm like, I haven't even thought about how much fun I'm having. That's how much fun I'm having, is that I haven't even thought about it, you know? If you guys are curious as to what the red marks are, they are the color holds, so that by the time Giuliano or Jules gets his hands on it, he doesn't have to sit there and break his, you know, want to commit seppuku trying to do separations for this hologram. So I did it on a separate layer for him because I'm a kind and giving dictator. That's so stupid. Oh wait, what am I doing? There we go. And I'm telling you, I'm having so much fun, and I hope that you guys can tell. I hope that you guys can tell of just like the hoot that I am having with each and every single one of these pages. And I'm kind of slowing down on some, and not slowing down on others, only because I figured if there is going to be spoilers involved, at the very least, I can spoil it as least as possible. Again, the purpose of me doing this in the first hour or so of the stream is just to give you guys a preview of the pages that I've finished since the last time that I showed these off, or last time that I checked in with you. Because most importantly, I want to be able to gain your trust to be like, oh, Kennedi's not behind. Kennedi's actually cranking on these pages, and if I can somehow garner your trust in supporting this project, supporting this campaign, because you know it's not going to take forever and a day to get to you, that's really one of my bigger goals. So here we are. Some of the moirine patterns on this zip tone is freaking obnoxious. So I'm gonna have to find my way through that, or at the very least, have Jules come and help me when he starts rendering everything. Here's another double page spread. I see that, okay. And I would hope, just by seeing the pages, that, it's somehow proof that you are going to be getting the best bang for your buck, you know? That I'm not skimping on... I was about to say I'm not skimping on backgrounds, but that third panel doesn't have a background in it. So F me. I think I may have showed this off last week because I had it done ahead of time. I finally caught up to this page because I did this ahead of time just so I could understand what the final effect would be. I'll show you the layer that I turned off because I thought it got a tiny bit too busy. It's all of these effects. See these? See this? Right? It got to be too busy, or at least I'm not convinced yet that this is the right way to go. I thought it was a lot more elegant by just turning that off and keeping it like this. I don't know. I keep going back and forth on it every time I revisit these pages just to make sure that everything is still okay. Anyway, that said, I caught up to that page. Here's the one that I finished just yesterday. Can you guys see that all right? Cool. And I think I finished this morning. Finish this one this afternoon. I swear, Jules better come in here and save my ass, because some of this shit is borderline illegible, if not 100% illegible. Okay. And this is what I was working on before I took a break this afternoon to go get some dinner and get ready for stream. There you go. How many pages was that since the last time that I showed you these? Since the last time I showed you updates for this book. Okay. I'm gonna catch up with chat real quick, and then I can start painting. Rob says, what about a tier where you get all the books at once, one shipping cost, high price? What do we think? Hey, what do you guys think about that? Rob and I talked about that offline. And he said, what if you can, at day one, you can buy all 5 books all at the same time? And the only thing that you have to worry about, or the only thing that you have to think about, is that every time that we release a new book, it's on its way to you. What do you guys think about that? But you pay for the entire thing, entire series, 1 through 5 up front. All I heard was that I am giving you at least $100, but more, but most likely $200. If that turns out to be the truth, I'm going to thank you ahead of time now. Not necessarily because you've spent a single dollar, but most specifically because you believe enough in the project after what you've seen that you can either tongue-in-cheekly joke about that or be wholeheartedly serious about supporting the project. So thank you so much for that, Sweet Tooth. I appreciate it. What About says, amazing, thank you. Thank you. I already asked what Rob's question was. Last page was a big spread with all the ships coming out. Oh, right. I remember showing that off. One of the guys on Cartoonist Kayfabe released a process PDF with his latest book. I think that's an awesome idea. I love that stuff, just in case you're looking for suggestions. Thank you so much, Prater, right? Am I saying that right? Prater? Thank you so much for that. I think that's a very good idea. One more thing I can put on into the suggestions box. I promise I take it very, very seriously. Ultimately, what I want to be able to do is just give you guys an amazing experience as supporters of the book, of backers of the series, and say, like, I really feel like I got my money out of this. Not just because, like, so here's the thing. I'm a proponent of the bonuses. I'm a proponent of the icing on the cake, the cherries on top, the little tiny extra scoops of ice cream on the side. But ultimately, I want to sell you on the book itself. And if you took a look at any of those pages and said, like, I'm on board, that is the sort of like big win for me, right? If you see the first book, if you've been joining me on Mondays, now Tuesday nights, and you're looking at the pages going like, damn, this guy's not skimping. I really want to support him. I really want to support his efforts. Ultimately, the thing that's going to end up speaking for itself is the series and the book and the art and the story itself, right? So, and everything else becomes extra icing. Everything else becomes sort of like a +1, +10. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. Jim Rugg did an excellent job with the process PDF. Great stuff. Yep, absolutely. NTM knows. NTM Comics. I mixed it up with Sup Bros. How are you, man? Such a good scene in such a shitty film. Are you talking about Dark of the Moon? I love that scene. Where am I going to put my dialogue? Get out of here with that dialogue. Okay, I'm now just scrolling. I love how there's almost 0 blank spaces on these pages. That's going to be hell for one Mr. Eric Weathers. I feel so bad for that guy. Thank you so much, Jose Garcia. These are some great looking images. Thank you so much. K Manifesto, John Moore, the guy who traces buildings, right? The one who projects, who just ports the buildings over. That John Moore. Thank you so much, Belle. I really, really appreciate it. Also, I feel like you must be giving your colors anxiety with these crazy things. 100%. I can show you some of his color approaches just recently, and it's amazing. I don't think I'm killing him so much as I'm killing his flatter. His flatter is going to be the one that's going to be cursing my name well into his grave. So, camera angles add a lot. Thank you so much. Matt Yaki, beautiful pages. Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a great IP for you, Eric. Incredible work. Thank you so much. It's strange because somebody, a friend of mine, his name is Bale. Bale is a great supporter, good buddy, and he was saying how he's already imagining me doing ARC Athena 2, like the next set of things, and that immediately gave me anxiety because I have no plans outside of these first 5 issues, these first 5 books, to do more stories. So whenever I get, feedback like, oh, this is going to be a great IP, I go like, oh yeah, so I guess there's a possibility there, but let me get through the next 60 pages first, The trust factor is really important to me. The biggest factor in me not investing in something crowdfunding is the worry of it not ever being fulfilled. So this is awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It does a great deal to my confidence to know that that's landing very positively with somebody. Thank you so much. Jose, Eric, the art is awesome. You should offer this as a hardcover. It is going to be a hardcover. If I can somehow manage to swing, it's going to, although Rob was like, I'm not a fan of hardcovers. So I'm kind of like, Rob is a great confidant in the time of quote unquote war that is what do you call it, self-publishing. So to hear him go like, I'm not a big fan of hardcover, I'm like, oh, come on, it's gonna be such a great experience for you to hold in your hand that it's not just some not a pamphlet, but depends, right? Everybody has their taste. Rob's insight doesn't diminish my enthusiasm of printing it as hardcover, as long as it's cost effective, not just for me, but obviously getting it out to you. Skip Edwards, that looks great. Thank you so much. Definitely agree on doing something like a hardcover deluxe edition. Yeah, I think the books themselves are already going to be hardcover. By the way, did anybody answer Rob or have 2 cents about Rob's thoughts in regards to paying for the entire series up front, all 5 volumes? If I will only offer that if I know for sure, at least on the black and white end, I never have to worry about Jules. I never have to worry about Eric, because they're top shelf, we're talking professionals, So I am going to be the weakest link in the pre-production. I'm only going to offer that option, first of all, if you're interested in it, and secondly, most importantly, if I have all 5 issues finished in black and white. That is, buy all 5 issues up front. You're not even going to need to worry about, going back in and supporting the subsequent subsequent campaigns, unless there's something in those subsequent campaigns where you're like, whoa, I want the artist edition 9x12 black and white, no dialogue, no color, added onto my issue 2 when you send it out, that kind of a thing, Hackerfight says, take my money, I will pay for whatever you put out whenever you put it out. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. What if you want to cancel this series? Me or you? You want to cancel this series? Like if you paid for it and you're like, I don't want it anymore? It's a great question. Literally just dropped $100 on Liam Sharp's Kickstarter. I'm fine dropping that on your work too. Thank you so much, Sweet Tooth. I appreciate it. If I don't get it all right away, I would think that rather back issues to issues so I can pick up various tiers, covers, Slarp. Good point. Very, very good point. I'm hoping for a hardcover of the whole thing at a fairly reasonable price. That's totally feasible. Tons and tons of options. Yes, hardcover with slipcase. We thought about that. God, it's just so much to coordinate. It's weird to have a hat that you put on, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this from a creative perspective, or at least in a task perspective, where you're like, I'm just gonna draw today, right? And then I'm going to take off the art hat, the creative hat, and put on the business hat, and be like, okay, now I got to start thinking about how to promote these tiers or come up with the most viable tiers to get people interested. Hey Leroy, how are you? Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's going to cost you a ton on shipping unless you plan on adding the shipping cost of each book into the total cost, and I think it's probably going to go in that direction. Truth be told, it's probably going to be built into the total cost of the tier. The dialogue will be available in a separate book. Yeah, in a separate book on on plastic shrink-a-dink bubbles, so you can put it yourself. I won't even tell you where the dialogue goes. I'll just send it in a box, and you guys put it into the issues where you see fit. Eric, he's back. You're still getting subbed to your Twitch? No, I left Twitch a long time ago. I think right around the time that I started working on Millar's books, I needed to allocate the time that I was using to stream on Twitch to work on Millar, and I never went back because things just got in the way, Charles, how are you? I guess I get to see the master back at work. Thank you so much for being here. Lex stumbles in late to the party. What's good with it? Hello, how are you? The CG Metalsmith, hail Eric in the chat. How are you? Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your company. Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm all caught up. as an international backer, I'd love to have all the books with just one shipping, even if it's a bit pricey. And that's what I think that's what Rob is getting. Rob, you still in here? Rob? I think that's what Rob was getting at, was that he was saying that if there's a way to save on shipping internationally, if you can get all 5 books all at once, all at the same time, which means you effectively opt out of the early adapter version, which is the one that gets out to you in expedited mail, right? It means you're gonna have to wait until all 5 are done, and then you get it all at once, which could projectively be, if I pace this out based on the advice that I got from Tim Lin, Mr. Common America himself, it could be, what did he say? It's like you could release 4 books in a year. And I was like, holy cow, 4 books in a year. And if I don't get those 5 issues to you until the last issue come out, that'd be like a year and a half, potentially. And I don't, can you wait a year and a half? I don't know. I don't know if you should, you know? Hello, Peter. How are you? Good evening. Thank you for joining us. All right, I'm all caught up with I'm all done with the page updates. I can just start painting now, right? Can I just start painting? Did I do that in record time? Crap, I did that under an hour. What am I going to do with myself for an hour and 15 minutes? All right, but definitely the one that I am super excited about. And I think I've been clear about this before, but I want to just keep underlining it, is that there's going to be a tier in which you can just get the hardcover book all by itself, all 60 pages of issue 1, volume 1, book 1. I can't remember what the heck we're going to end up calling it. But all 60 pages, 64 pages, and it's going to be at your doorstep. The moment you click the button, it's going to be at your doorstep in 4 weeks. That is really all I'm looking forward to. As a backer, as a potential sort of supporter of a book, that is the tier that excites me the most, is to know, like, holy crap, that was 4 weeks ago. Kennedy got it to me fast. You don't mind waiting though? Yeah. No, that's good. I love feedback like that. I love feedback like that. Okay, where was I? Can I just start drawing or painting now? What am I painting next? Did I say Skeletor? Can I just paint this? Can I just do the value for this? Because I rarely get to paint on stream. And then I'm not saying that I'm going to paint now, but I sure as heck, I'm going to try. Normally I end up doing work on stream, but I've been doing my best to stay as studious this week as much as I possibly can, and I just wanted to take a break and do something a little bit different as a palate cleanser, so to speak. Virginia Critchfield, I would love to upfront pay for all the books and just one shipping price. It would save you so much money too. I agree with you. I 100% agree. By the way, thank you so much, Virginia, for being here. Folks, I want to give you a little side story. When I first started in the video game industry, it was not at all in my wheelhouse. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything about video games. I didn't know about the games that I was working on. And I remember walking into that company and being really super alienated. I think I was the oldest guy in there. That's how it's really embarrassing. But anyway, being the oldest person and not knowing anything in games, and more importantly, not being in that community, not being in the video game community, who people kind of knew each other. You know, they had sort of a kinship. They knew each other from whatever sort of message boards or like these social gatherings that they would get into together. Again, I felt like the odd man out. And I just remember there were a handful of very kind, very generous people who made time for me to make me feel less alienated. Most importantly, be part of that internal community. Virginia Critchfield was one of those people. She was so very generous with her time, making sure that between the day-to-day of just working on video games and all the social activities, all the community activities that happened in parallel, she made sure that I never felt left out. So thank you so much. I value our friendship and our association. And most importantly, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Whatever you want to work on is fine with me. All right, awesome. Eric and Eddie, maybe I missed it, but will you have tiers with original art pages? The answer to that is yes. And there's two versions. One is going to be, and I'm limiting it to something like 15 or 20. It's going to be bust and Copic markers. Somebody brought up in chat that, hey, Copics aren't very light fast, so it'll be beholden to you to sort of like, involve a level of light fastness to it, not the least of which the acrylic glass that you should use in order to preserve it, right? If should you decide to frame it, or just don't put it next to a window, So 9x12 bust in Copic marker, limited to 15. And in the other one, because as I've said earlier or before, ARC Athena is being done on a 100% digital pipeline. I'm drawing all of these pages digitally, so there's not really pages with original art on them of these characters of this series. So instead, I'm going to generate 7 of them, original art that's about this big. And I showed this earlier. Can you see this? Okay. This is the last thing. This is like the original X. Can you see that? I'm bright enough. But this is the 11x17. It's going to be on this paper, and it's going to be rendered in Copic marker. And I was trying to look for one that was already rendered, so you'd know exactly what it looked like, or at least get as close to what it's going to look like in its final. So that's going to be a tier. The other ones, the busts, are going to be anything that you want. If you go in that tier and you're like, hey, I supported the bust tier for campaign 1. And you're like, well, I really like, name the character. I really like Wolverine. I really like this. I really like this. Like, okay, cool, you get to choose. But in the 11x17 space, it's all going to be predetermined ARC Athena characters, which, again, I would think would be a draw because there is no original tangible art for the actual series itself. Does that make sense? I'm glad you feel like part of the community, Black Rose Comics, and I love everything you have on the channel. We'd love to have back you on. We'll do everything we can to help promote. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Anytime somebody is willing to take a chance on me, take a chance on my projects and support whatever creative endeavor that I may have in mind, in whatever capacity, I'm so very grateful. So thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. All right, I'm going to do this thing. So here's one of the things that helped me get comfortable with doing full on how would you say it, like a full so when I first started at the video game company I worked for, I remember everybody was kids and everybody knew how to use Photoshop. Everybody was on a digital pipeline, right? So and because I was a senior on the team, part of my responsibilities, it was beholden onto me to give, and I wanted to do it because I remember being in that space of being a junior or mid-level artist and not necessarily having competent leadership that could help me elevate my craft, guide me through my career trajectory, and most importantly, give me the sort of, well, how would you say, give me the benefit of their experience so I can get more comfortable in this space of getting better as an artist and as an illustrator. So I really wanted to give as much of that back to as many of the juniors and mid-levels as I could, even some of the seniors, although the seniors on my team were just freaking rock stars. So to be honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing there. Anyway, when the opportunity provided itself in which I can give back to my younger teammates, they would ask me for feedback on their art. And I just remember them sending me the digital file, hey, Eric, what do you think of this? And they'd send it over to me, and I would not know what to do with Photoshop. I would just I was struggling so much of how to give them feedback, and I had to do it in such a way where I would print out the original, or I would print out the image, right? And then doodle on top of the image traditionally. And it would just slow everything down to a crawl, right? And my lead at that time was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, it's the only way I can make notes. It's the only way I knew how to. And so when I was in that space, eventually it dawned on me, I'd better learn how to draw digitally, or I'd better get comfortable drawing digitally. I'd always colored my pages digitally, so that didn't really, that wasn't really much of a challenge, but actually going into a full digital production from rough to finished deliverable, I'd never done that before. And so that's one of my big takeaways of being on this team of like super young, super hungry, and really overqualified bunch of fucking kids who run circles around me on my best day. That really did inspire me to brush up on my Photoshop skills, or like my digital painting skills. So, Virginia was in here earlier, and if you've ever seen any of her work, it's just mind-bogglingly good. Mind-bendingly good. And being in an environment like that with really, amazing craftsmen, really like people who really know what they're doing in the space that, in the artistic space and the task that they're occupying. It's intimidating, but also inspiring, like that's the kind of stuff that I want to be around, because I want to be, if it were up to me, I'd be the worst artist in the room, because all that will do is like, oh, I have that bar that I need to hit. And I want to be challenged in that space. Anyway, you're not going to distract me. I see what you said, Rob. You're not going to distract me, man. All right, let's paint this on a separate layer, because I'm actually going to start refining now. Ooh, this glare is insane. Can I do this? Oof, that glare is bonkers. All right, here we go. There was this one guy's brush set that I downloaded. Because I always think to my head, like, man, I look at the guy's painting online, and I think to myself, dude, if I get that guy's brushes, I'm going to be so freaking awesome. which is not true at all. And that point couldn't be any more clear than when I don't know if you guys know the concept artist. His name is Dave Raposa. And Dave went to this event that used to be more frequent than it is now, if it's around at all. There was a studio called Massive Black. And Massive Black used to put on these workshops that toured all over the world with a bunch of concept artists that they knew, people that they were friendly with, really elite bunch of guys, Anyway, the one in LA, Dave Raposa was doing a demo, a painting demo. And I think the point that he wanted to make was, it doesn't matter what the brush is. It's going, and I kind of had an inkling that it didn't really ultimately matter in the grander picture. Ultimately, it's going to be the person who is wielding the brush, so to speak. But the funny part was, Dave Raposa had this thing called a penis brush, where you can't see it on screen right now because you can't see my cursor, but in Photoshop it would be that much more obvious, because the brush tip shape would be clearly noticeable, and it looked like a semi-erect penis, which was a great point to make, as only Dave Raposa could. Okay, this is the portion of the stream in which I go quiet because I'm paying attention to how to render something. But that does not mean you shouldn't ask me questions in regards to craft or tips or anything like that. Anything that you can do to interrupt me from finishing rendering this image. Anything that you can do, I'd be happy to answer. It's 9:01. I cannot believe I'm painting or drawing on this stream by 9:01, which is a rare occurrence for me. Massive. Yeah, no, I don't think I think that was one of their wink and a nod, because I remember when they went into publishing, And I was like, I wonder if they're aware of exactly how this comes off. But their studio logo was a big black rooster. Yeah, their logo is a big black rooster, and their studio was called Mass Black. So I think it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think the joke was lost on them. I think, as a matter of fact, it's quite deliberate. Did I say hello to Juliana, who just walked into stream? Juliana, can you answer something for me? My friend Belle actually mentioned it, and it's weird, not because I don't care, but because my brain is in a completely different space, right? Anytime that you and I are talking, anytime that you and I are talking in regards to the pages that you have done, right? But Jules, are you still there? All right, Jules, if you're still there, answer me this, and I want you to be honest with me, okay? I need you to be honest with me. Does your flatter hate me by now? Does your flatter hate me at this point? For the awful things I am making them do separations on. Yes or no? By the way, in all of my digital paintings, as a matter of fact, I got really super conscious about this stuff, okay? Being that this is not my wheelhouse, at least historically, right? I'm a comic book guy. Somehow somebody thought it was a good idea for me to work in video games and help run a team. Go figure. Anyway, I always am self-conscious about zooming in this much into an image because the render is so ugly, right? And somebody, I can't remember who it was, when I brought that up, he's like, have you ever looked at a real painting? I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, if you go and look at a real painting, the brush strokes aren't really all that tight when you're, 3 inches from your nose away from it. It really is very, very loose. The effect is best experienced when there's a reason why they don't have you look at a painting, super close. The effect is better experienced when you're standing a bit further away from it. I'm like, what? Because sometimes I'm rendering something like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this ugly space right here. And they're like, that doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. And I'm like, all right. Right. Now, the one thing that really saved my butt in regards to learning how to digitally paint is exactly what you're seeing me do now. It used to be such an intimidating thing for me to just like sit here and look at this like freaking color, this palette, It would just freak me out. Like this is what I typically see in Photoshop, this disc, and I'm like, fuck. And then somebody tried to teach me how to color using like, the triangle or whatever, and I'm like, that sucks so much. Every version of these color palettes freaked me out because I didn't have a clear understanding and a confident understanding. Actually, that's a better way to describe it. A confident understanding of how color works, right? And so I can't remember who was it that just said, okay, don't worry about color right now. Make sure your values hold up. And I think that is the best piece of advice that I'd ever gotten. And anytime somebody is struggling with color and puts it to me for feedback to go like, Eric, what do you think of this, right? I always ramp all of the saturation back down to its grayscale form, to its as close to realistic values. Because sometimes when somebody has colored it already and you slide down the saturation slider and it turns gray, it's kind of misrepresentative of what you're getting. And there's a great YouTube channel, or a great episode in a YouTube channel, I can't remember what it was, that doing that trick isn't always a one-to-one. But anyway, point is, you get pretty close, right? So I can't remember who told me the trick, or who told me you need to simplify the way you see an image. And I think based on what they knew about me doing my gray marker rendering, they were like, but you render stuff in Copic all the time. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty easy. It's just light, right? And he's like, yeah, that's what color is. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? It's like, render it in value first, right? It's not going to be end all or be all. It's not going to be like how especially if you're going to start adding color to it, it's not going to be the last thing. There's going to be a lot of adjustment. But if it holds up in value, right? If you understand it in gray, and if it's legible in gray, you are more than 50% there. And like, what? Shut up. And they're like, just try it. And that's what gave me the confidence. So now, especially when I'm giving feedback to me and Jules, right? When we're going back and forth on color stuff, like the first thing that I do is take a look at it to see if everything is legible by way of its levels. Like if you take a look at my pages, I stack things very specifically in as far as to convince you that in a two-dimensional space, or in a two-dimensional image, has three-dimensional space. And the best way that I've learned how to do that is to put a foreground, middle ground, background element, right? And if all of those three elements are legible in color, then it really does help you help the reader get immersed in depth, right? And so whenever Jules and I are looking through color, especially when it's in a brand new space, like when they're fighting in an underground or an underwater, in an underwater base, right? We look at everything through how to separate everything through layers. And one of the first things that I do is just crank that saturation bar over. And I start I don't necessarily do that as much as I used to. I just do the squint test. I'm like, is everything reading? If the answer is no, and I'll be very candid with you, the most recent double page spread that Jules turned in, we were hitting our heads on the wall of how to make this thing look like, how to make one of these monsters pop, because it's like a crab monster, so naturally your tendency is to have it be in the reddish area, although that's kind of misleading because crabs don't turn red until they're cooked, which is kind of morbid. Anyway, it was a reddish room, and there was a red crab, one of the red crab monsters, and he was just disappearing. Like, you couldn't read him. So we were like, we were online. We were, I can't remember. We were on Discord, and he was sharing his screen with me, and he was grabbing the layer that had the crab on it. And he was just sliding the hue slider left and right. Like, which one is the most legible? And I don't know if we ever landed on anything that made us ultimately happy, but we're spending way too much time on this one freaking part of one freaking part of the book. Let's just move on. But those are the kinds of the challenges that we are paying attention to, because we need to make that as legible as possible. And to backtrack to my original point, that's how I get comfortable with color, is to land value first. And if you're having trouble with color, I suggest that's something that you try for yourself. If it holds up in value, if it holds up in gray and black and white, you're more than halfway there. At least from my experience. Dudesy Cutie Patoon. That's a great name. Am I a comic book artist? I'm pretending to be one. Somebody's allowing me to be a comic book artist. Am I a comic book artist? Yes. Kind of. Is that what I do for a living? I'm a concept artist that's playing a comic book artist. There's a guy associated with Massive Black went by Black Frog. His comics were, really, really gorgeous stuff. 100%. 100%. Virginia's absolutely right. Is his name Igor? Why would he not just use Igor? Igor sounds so freaking awesome. American Discord, right on, Eric. Glad to see you live. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining me. Vern is shading hard. Is shading difficult? I'm kind of used to it by now, so I don't know if it's as difficult. It's, for me, it's certainly more, it's less difficult than color. But I've talked to a lot of artists who are like, geez, to do something, it's a lot more work for them because doing it in color straight off the bat is a lot more natural, right? So to take this extra step into trying to do things in value is sort of like a waste of time for them because color comes naturally, so naturally for them. But for me, because it's not so natural, I have to go. So to your question, is it difficult? No, at least not for me because I've been doing it for a while. For some others, it may be, like for somebody who's naturally gifted at just going straight to color, having them slow down and do gray might be difficult. I'm a master comic book artist. I'm a master con artist. I'm just kidding. I don't know what mastery level is. Can I tell you a funny little aside? I don't know what mastery level comic book art is. For every one of those guys that like claim to be really, really good or have a certain level of mastery, there's always somebody that's... I just saw somebody brought up cartoonist kayfabe earlier. Why is that not working? I'll do this. I'll do this. One more time. Let's get this right. Here is his... Actually, you know what? I'm just going to erase this because I think I'm getting distracted by the wrinkles. Okay. I was just listening to Cartoonist Kayfabe, and they went through all of Barry Windsor Smith's art. I think they were on like... It was a week-long Barry Windsor Smith Appreciation Fest. And... just between you and I, that guy is a master comic book artist. I think he's slumming it whenever he does anything comic book related. This is what happens when I skip a step and just want to start rendering detail. It doesn't work. Like, I have to get all of this foundational stuff down first so I can get comfortable. Oops, which way is he leading? Yeah, whatever. I have to get all this foundational stuff out of the way first, or it's just rendering for the sake of rendering. As a matter of fact, you get structure down. If you land structure pretty decently, you can just, detail you can imply and get away with so much. Because structure is doing all the heavy lifting for you. Most people use detail, a lot of people, excuse me, not most, but a lot of people use detail as a crutch to cover up, not having good foundation. And I'd come to find going the other way, being more deliberate, being more careful and strategic, actually being, planning out the understructure, ends up saving so much time later. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to worry about fixing a leg or fixing the light. And we're talking about fundamentally, like, how volumes work, right? Like, you worry about how to make sure those volumes read at the fundamental foundational level. You don't have to worry about putting that much detail. Which is good for me. Because I'm lazy. That's why I wish I could show you some of my co-workers' work. These kids, there's this amazing young lady, her name is Mindy. Mindy, I think, if she's 23, she's a zygote. She's like a young kid who can just, she says things like, just as recently as today, she said, I just have a couple of sketches. And I'm like, okay, but we still need to see them because it's art review, And she, she shared her screen or whatever because everybody's working remote, and I was like, those aren't sketches, man. Some of that stuff is my finished work. What are you doing? As discouraging as it may be, it is inspiring all at the same time. because artists like that, at that very, very young age, keep me on my toes. It makes me want to try better at my job. But the reason why she is so successful at the thing that she does is because she has a fundamental understanding of foundational work. Her sketches look as good as they do is because she landed the basics, right? Lighting, structure, etc. The heck? Only 15 minutes have passed. These are one of those things that seem like it's an easy thing to paint until I realize, look how many elements I need to get through. And I want to get it to a level of fidelity and render that is, good enough for a cover, so to speak, right? So I know there's plenty of people who would probably just be like, that's not all that important. Skip that part. But if it's going to be turned into a poster, I kind of want to spend a little bit more time on it than I would just a really quick. So I'd probably, truth be told, I'd probably have left it as it was before I started. If all I knew was going to be a fun little sketch that I wasn't going to do anything with. But in this particular case, I want it to be at a level of render and polish that it could stand up as a poster. Does that make sense? So if you go to my website, ericcanetti.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter for ARC ATHENA, and also be entered for a chance to win a mini bust, a prototype mini bust of the leader. Anyway, if you go and take a look at the value drawing I did of Wonder Woman there, that's the level of polish that I'm comfortable saying, okay, this is done. Until then, I am just going to sit here and render the heck out of this thing. What did I miss? Can I go back? Am I going back? I think Monsters will probably be the last comic Barry will work on, and I think kind of lost the love for making comics from whenever. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Since he's it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring to see him draw, because he's so damn good at it, I mean, hell, it took him 37 years to make that beast. I guess so. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but I certainly hope that he finds it within himself, selfishly speaking, that I love his work so much. But I really hope he finds it within himself to keep drawing, because he's an amazing illustrator. I have to go. I hope everyone has a good day/night. Thanks for streaming and for answering all our questions. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you, hopefully, next Tuesday. Not only is Eric a master artist, but a humble and kind and honest one. I've met him several times, but one great memory was I was with my younger son, and I asked Eric to sign my Encore book and the clamshell, and he had drew a sketch, and I was giddy, but the best part was I wanted to buy another sketchbook, and he had stopped me and said, don't buy it. Hey, thank you so much for supporting my work. Oh, because all the sketches from that book was in Encore. That's class. Yeah. I wouldn't want you to buy a book that had stuff already in the other book. And Encore was like £8, right? Like the clamshell, to give you guys a point of reference, I don't know if it's still available on the essentialsequential.com website. But if you take a look at if it happens to be there, or maybe you can find it elsewhere, there's people who are selling it. I only made X amount of copies of it. But it's a clamshell book, and inside was 300 or 400 pages worth of my artwork from my blog back when I had a blog spot, and I uploaded everything. So we took all of those files, made a book out of it, put a clamshell in it. By the time all was said and done, the book in and of itself with the clamshell was about £8. Charles could probably speak to this more intimately than I have. I wasn't the person carrying it around, but anytime that I saw somebody carrying around that book for me to sign, I felt so bad for them. Simultaneously grateful, obviously, for the support, but I really felt bad for them for carrying around this £8 book. That's one. The other one is, if everything is in there already, I'm not going to try to double dip and get your money by selling you a sketchbook that already had some of the same, if not exactly the same material that you've already gotten this thing that you're carrying around with your kid for £8, you know, so. Oh, for real, I mean, be cool if you were able to finish the Thing project you never finished back in the 80s. Maybe have Marvel now give it another chance to finish it. I think, who said it? It was either Ed or it was Jim, but somebody in that, when they were going over the ones where he was, and we're talking about Barry Windsor Smith, when they were going over his work on X-Men and he was drawing the one-offs of Storm, right? I think it was Ed. No, it must have been Jim Rugg. He said, Marvel doesn't deserve this guy. And I laughed. And I said, 100% they don't deserve him. So in as much as I would love to see more Barry Windsor Smith art, I don't think Marvel deserves him at all. Oh, there's somebody had mentioned earlier in regards to, oh man, it would be great to have Eric on a Marvel book. Eric being me. I speak about myself in third person all the time. I have an opinion about that. One, I don't think I would make them much money, right? And only because I can't draw that fast, although that's kind of hilarious thinking about it since I'm cranking on ARC ATHENA, but the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about that is because ARC ATHENA belongs to me. And I love the story. I love being invested in the story. I love being invested in the process. And drawing just comes pouring out. You know, it's so much fun to draw this book. But if I were to draw for Marvel, I'm of an age now where I'm no longer impressed by the glitz of an X or an Avenger logo. You know what I mean? I'm not sort of like sitting here going like, oh man, I can't wait to draw an X-Men book. You know how I draw an X-Men book? I go write my own X-Men book, especially the kind of X-Men book that I enjoyed growing up back when I was reading X-Men for Marvel, you know? So rather than pine for the opportunity, I'd rather take that time, energy, and effort and put it into something that wholly belongs to me under the kind of control and vision that I would have for that thing. So it would be a bad move on Marvel's part to hire me because I'm not that fast. And most importantly, I wouldn't be that invested. Yeah, I don't think they would get their money from me. And that's the other thing. Hold on, I'm gonna take a sip. And this, by the way, what I'm about to say isn't patting myself on the back, and I'll give you more context on that. So a handful of people have reached out to me behind the scenes and said, hey Eric, what is your rate? This just happened just recently, as a matter of fact. Somebody said, what is your page rate? And I quoted them high, right? And I remember, who was it that was, I think it was one of E-Boy Zach's videos where he said he's working with his professional, and his professional quoted him his rate, and Zach said, like, you know, this isn't the what do you call it for that anymore. You know, like how did he phrase it? Where it's like, you can't get that rate anymore because there isn't a market for that rate anymore. Makes total sense in as far as what the market is willing to pay for you. Makes total sense. You are at the mercy of what the current rate of the market will allow. Makes total sense to me. But there's also the version where I'm like, well, I'm not going to draw for anything less than that. So those are two things that are just as valid. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the market will never pay for that kind of thing. There's just not a market for that kind of page rate anymore. But I also have an understanding of what it takes for me to draw and sit behind the desk on a project that doesn't belong to me, and it costs this much. And the reason why I bring that up is because that was basically my guiding, that was basically my compass when Mark Millar reached out to me to come and have to join him, for the opportunity to join him on drawing stuff for Chrononauts and by proxy Netflix, right? I threw everything at Mark to convince him that this was not a good idea to bring me on. One, I'm gonna take forever, right? Like, I quoted him, I can't remember how many months for those issues. It must have been 16 months, like a long amount of time. I said, hey man, I'm only going to be able to draw X amount of pages per week because I have this 9 to 5. And he's like, no problem. And I said, and to make this worth my time, for me to give up my morning, for me to give up the time that I usually spend in order to do stuff so that I stay sane, which basically means draw for myself, it would cost this much. And without batting an eye, and I'm probably obviously because, Netflix, right? He was like, yeah, sure, no problem. But that's the number that I feel comfortable with. So in as much as Zach is going to say, like, there's no market for that, totally understand, totally respect it, makes total sense to me. But to me, for me to give up my time, it's going to cost that much. Does that make sense? And to that point, Marvel can't afford me. Does that make sense? And that's not patting me on the back. It's certainly, what I'm trying to get at is that this is the number that I am willing, this is the number that I'm willing to sit down and work on stuff that's not for me. And if the answer is like, well, that's way too much because the market won't yield that, or the market won't afford that, totally cool. I'm not saying the market is wrong, right? But this is what I believe in. This is the value of my work and my time. I mean, hell, I don't know how much he completed. No, he can only do 2 pages a month these days. Sure, makes total sense. For real, Barry got kind of screwed by a bunch over, but I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to read that. With editors and wanting to be the one to lead, I mean, I figure the page rates at Marvel aren't much to talk about these days. I know it. I know for sure that they're not that much to talk about. I've heard some of their, not the ones that they consider to be like their guys, you know what I mean? Like the ones that they obviously have legacied into a much, much higher page rate. But I'm talking about like the guys who pump out these supposedly premier books. They're not getting paid much. At least based on the effort that I see they put in, and you want to know why they don't last that long, right? One part, not wholly, one part, I suspect, it's because these guys finally wake up one morning and like, I am undervalued, like fuck. Working on X-Men as a dream is great. I'm all for it if that's what you've wanted to do since you were a kid. You saw the cartoon, you saw Jim Lee do it, you saw whomever your heroes do it. X-Men as a movie franchise, whatever it is that got you turned on to X-Men and you said, yeah, that's the career I want to draw that book. That's totally awesome. But if they are not paying you your worth, somebody will. I promise you somebody will. You may struggle for a little bit trying to find it, but to lower yourself, especially to a comic book page rate standard, I am not surprised why certain, like some of the mainstream comic book companies are actually like going elsewhere beyond the United States, because that rate has so much more value, in some instances, so much more value somewhere else in the world. I never read another book by Mark Millar's Reborn book ended on such a bad note that I can't stand at work, and that was 2016. He's done. I've read Magic Order, which is the book that he's doing with Olivier Coipel, and there are only a handful of series that I can remember, one of which is Uncanny X-Force that Rick Remender did with Jerome Pena, in which after I'm reading it, or as I'm reading it, or after I've read it, I'm like, motherfucker, this is good. And I'm jealous of not being a part of it. I'm jealous not having drawn it, knowing full well that part of that initial jealousy comes from the fact that the artist and the writer win such a level of congruency, such a level of like mind meld, that thing as an experience, as a storytelling experience was so good. Magic Order by Mark Millar and Olivier is so top notch. If I can recommend one of his books from the series that's come out since since he went over to Netflix, that's the one, and it's so freaking good, so goddamn good. So if you're a little bit burned out, if you got burned by his whatever series it is that you refer to, Reborn, if you got burned by that, go read Magic Order, and if you still feel like it's not worth the time, I'll send you your money back. Good on you for valuing your word time. Well, this is true, right? I'm like, I only have so much time in my day. A good portion of me still has to make time for, I'm not the 20 some odd year old sitting in a small room in a house. I actually have other things that I prefer. It just brings my life a certain level of richness not being behind this table, right? So if somebody's going to say, actually, we're going to limit that in some capacity, if we're going to sort of hamstring that opportunity for you to step away from this table so that you can have a better work-life balance, I'm going to ask for a monetary value that I believe that's worth. And if somebody says, well, the market doesn't pay that, I'm like, cool, no hard feelings. That's not me being delusional. That's me like valuing my work because I know somebody can pay it. Somebody did. Why didn't I finish End League? That's a great question. What's the best way to explain it? I mismanaged my time in such a shitty way on End League. Rick did everything that he could to help me find a way to make those deadlines, and I did not have a level of appreciation, and most importantly, I did not have the professionalism to see that thing all the way through. So I let Rick down on that. I let Rick down in such a big way on that book. And I don't know if I don't know if that somehow impacted my personal relationship with him, but that's the main reason. I did not manage my time well enough. I did not have the professional and I think personal maturity to deal with, hey, this is a comic book that needs to get out at a certain time, even with the relaxed, quote unquote, relaxed schedule that Dark Horse that had put us in. I should have been able to do that. Knowing and doing what I do now, I think I would have excelled in delivering that book in a more timely manner, but I just did not have enough respect for the production, the production line, and the other creatives involved in the process to turn that thing in regularly. So if you're asking me why didn't I finish it, the fact that I finished as much as I did is a testament to Rick's patience with me and Dark Horse's patience with me. So that I didn't finish it because I wasn't professional enough to finish it, and that's the honest truth. I get that it's a business, but every day I read something that tells me that these CEOs are not fans. It's really sad. Nothing new, but super sad. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to judge whether or not top-level executives are fans of the actual process, the actual medium of comics. I don't know. I can't speak about all of them, but I know a handful who do not seem to understand because they are living a completely different life than the freelancers that they're hiring out to. I do know a few executives who do not know that freelance life and how underpaid they. It's a weird statement for me to make because I understand the business of it, right? If you're not making any money selling comic books, there's no way you can justify paying above a certain rate to your artists and to your creatives. Makes total sense to me from a business perspective, but from a value perspective, some of these people are establishing franchises for you or helping to stand up your IP, right? A perfect example is, my Spider-Verse, right? Spider-Verse won an Academy Award for Best Animated Film. And if you track where that came from Bendis and that came from Sarah Pichelli. Did they get paid the kind of money that they needed in order, for their contribution to stand up that IP or that version of the IP, that wing or that whatever, I don't know if they did. more importantly, do they get retroactively get paid for, like, holy crap, man, you basically came up with a Spider-Man that is just as viable in X amount of years. I can't remember when they created Miles Morales, but in X amount of years, you came up with a version of Spider-Man that's just as viable as the original Spider-Man who's been around for forever, right? Thank you so much for that. Here's a here's a cameo in the movie because you're in Miles Morales' phone. It's tragic. Charles says it was a great book. I agree with you. I agree with you. And I was the one that was holding it back. There were a lot of great people involved in that book, and I was the weakest link in that chain of creativity. So I can't thank Rick enough for being so patient with me. I can't thank Dark Horse enough for being so patient with me. It was just unfortunate that I wasn't mature enough to be able to take that to its most ideal finish. Good evening, John Amore. How are you? Thank you for being here. Did I get caught up in chat? Oh my gosh. I have 20 minutes to draw. Okay, good. I draw a little bit, I talk a little bit. Feels good. Okay, what did I intend with these? See, that's the thing. When you're just sketching and not paying attention, you get kind of caught up in the, I get caught up in the detail rather than the intent or the big shape, right? Like, this is a harness. It's probably symmetrical. So draw it symmetrical first, and then you can draw the stuff on it. Actually, probably be better this way, right? I have a friend named Dave Tran. I don't know if Dave's in here. John, is Dave in here? Anyway, I have a friend, Dave Tran, who is always on the lookout for the neatest gadgetry that is associated with, because he knows I think he's into Procreate now as well on his iPad. But anyway, Dave is always on the lookout for like the latest gadgetry that's associated with the iPad Pro. And how it's, that gadgetry helps, how would you say, helps the production pipeline, right? So like, as you can see, like I don't know, you guys can't see me, but I'm using my finger as a color picker when I'm laying down these values, right? So it would be so much easier, because if you know all the hotkeys to Photoshop, it'd be so much easier if there was a keyboard associated to this thing. Well, lo and behold, somebody invented a keyboard that is Bluetooth that you could hook up directly to Procreate, and all of those hotkeys you could basically program in. Either they're pre-programmed in, or you can do it yourself, right? Now I ordered one because Dave brought it to my attention. Bro, look at this thing. That's how Dave talks, by the way. Bro, look at this thing. It's so cool. And I was like, oh yeah, that is Dave. Absolutely. And so I get caught up in Dave's hype. And I ordered one for myself. And it's on its way. But here's the trend. I end up getting one of those things, getting super hyped about it for like half a day, taking it out for a spin, and then just going back to the way I do things anyway, which is like using my finger as a color picker. Freaking ridiculous. Random comment, but I really dig your Guyver piece. You know what? Thank you very much for that. I didn't think that people would... I didn't think there would be too many people who knew who that character was, because I feel like that's from like an oldie McOlderson version of like an anime craze, you know, like I don't even know half of the anime or half of the manga that's out there right now. So when I drew Guyver, I was like, oh, this is the thing that I really, really liked as a kid who watched this stuff on VHS. And then so many people are like, holy fucking shit, man, that's Guyver, that's awesome. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you're either the same age as me, or people are finding this stuff and it's they're liking it as much as I am. So anyway, thank you for that. Xerxes, this is exciting. I finally caught one of these live. Thank you so much for making time for me. I really appreciate it. It's 9:42 my time, so that means I have about 18 minutes or so before I have to sign off, but I'm glad that you're here for the final 18 minutes. I really appreciate it. Do you still work traditionally, pen and ink, etc.? Yes, as a matter of fact, I look up right now because there is a second camera above my head that's pointing down onto my table, and I think just as soon as I get that thing set up, we're going to have a couple streams here where I work traditionally, specifically for the 11x17 original art tiers that I'm going to offer, or original art that I'm going to offer as a tier for when my campaign launches in September. So I think that's going to be kind of neat, me recording it live. You guys get to hang out with me, and I'll finish whatever of it that I can. Hopefully it doesn't suck. It may suck. What's the keyboard called? Crap. I forgot. I don't know. As soon as I get it, I'll put it on my social media. You can follow me on Instagram, on Twitter under Eric Canetti. I'd be more than happy to share it with you that way. Are you saying Dave invented the keyboard? Yes, he did invent the keyboard, but not the QWERTY, but the Yamaha. Hey Eric, first time in one of your live streams and I'm really enjoying it. I was wondering if you've been following any comics, graphic novels, or any manga. Actually, here's the thing, and I don't know if this is ever going to be viable because I don't know. I have been trying to get caught up in comics, so I've been downloading, legally, I bought them. I've been downloading a lot of recent comics to see what the big deal is. So whenever somebody bombs on X or Y writer, I'm like, okay, that's great, that's your opinion, but I kind of want to come up with that kind of perspective on my own, independent of what you think, right? Because your taste could be completely different from mine. You know, preferences are subjective. So I've been downloading something going as far back as 3 years to see what the hot things are, right? Or hot things were. Hold on, I can look at my iPad and tell you guys exactly the stuff that I bought. Okay, here we go. If my iPad is still charged. Okay, here's what I bought. I bought just recent, this is pretty recent-ish, okay? So I bought all of King in Black. And, whew, that was underwhelming. For a big event, I was trying to understand, like, first of all, you know, I grew up in an age of X-Men and big events, so I had a point of reference. Affinity of X-Men aside, I had a pretty great point of reference of what big events felt like. We're talking about, you know, Fall of the Mutants and what was the one that Jim Lee was involved in, where I had a massive crossover into X-Force, massive crossover into X-Factor and X-Men, Extinction Agenda. So it's like big events. I've experienced big events in my comic book collecting career where it actually felt big. Like, oh my gosh, this is something major is happening. And regardless of how many tie-ins it involved, I didn't have to read X-Men, I didn't have to read X-Factor, and I didn't have to read New Mutants to understand how big it was, right? Because in X-Men, in X-Men alone, I understood, like, fuck man, there's so much happening, and there's so many things that are like, not life-altering, but you know what I mean? Like, it felt big. And I read King in Black, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Right? And I don't know if this is sort of and I've heard this already, and it's really, really unfortunate, but maybe the company is experiencing some level of event fatigue, because I really felt like when you hype something like this, it should deliver. And I really felt like, I wish I could point to specific panels and like, this is supposed to be a big deal, but I don't know why this shot is like this. Anyway, it did not, that wasn't the thing that detracted me from like the underwhelmingness of it all. I think it was me. I think it was my expectancy. Does that make sense? Like, this could be totally great, but the picture that I had in my head was not what was being delivered, and that's really unfair to King in Black, you know? So I was like, oh, it's a big event book. They've been talking it up since forever. And I sat there and read it. And I'm like, oh, maybe the fault is in me for expecting something different. Oh yeah. What else? I'm reading, or I downloaded, and I'm about to read this most recent Alien book. That's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson and drawn by Salvador Larroca. I'm a fan of Salvador Larroca's from back in the day, so I'm about to read that. How do I get back to my menu? Okay, it just took forever to close. Let's see. What else? Newish, right? You're saying new comics? Not too much. I was trying to get into this whole X of Swords thing. Miraz's, the thing that carries, I'll tell you this, Miraz's art carries that book. Holy shit, that guy can draw everything. But in as far as like the experience, again, being an event book, I'm like, what is this? They all get swords? What is the event behind like everybody get, and then like what's the stakes of that? What is the stake of that event? I remember when Fall of the Mutants happened, and I still remember the plotline. Forge, at one point in his tour in Vietnam, because his squadron was getting obliterated by the bad guys, right? He, as a spellcaster and is a magician, a mage. Anyway, he opens up a gate, but in order to open up that gate's exact revenge, because he was so broken up about his men, the soldiers in his company, getting killed by the bad guys, he was so overwrought with anger and despair, he used their souls to open up the gate, right? And all these demons came pouring out and killed, the bad guys. So fast forward to current time, or when it was that event took place, those demons are still on Earth, and the only way that they can, the only way that they can seal the gate and put those demons back behind it is it took 7, I can't remember how many of his men's souls it took to open the gate, but it would take that many souls to close it again, right? And the only way they could, like, they were being overwhelmed that entire series, and they were like, nothing we can do can stop this onslaught of demons, and the only way we can get them back behind the gate again is to sacrifice. And the 7 souls, or the 8 souls, whatever it was, had to be the X-Men. It had to be the X-Men, because they were the only ones who were doing it. And the tragic thing, the great storytelling that Chris Claremont did, was they caught it all on camera, which is, there was a TV news reporter that got caught up, that got, rolled up into the X-Men because of all the crazy demon shit that was happening. And each of the X-Men said their goodbyes as they were sacrificing their souls to close this gate. And Forge just felt like absolute crap, because this was his sin that his friends are basically paying for. And they did it, and the gates closed, and the X-Men technically died for a while, And those are the stakes. You had to sacrifice the main character. The main characters of the book had to sacrifice themselves in order for this thing to be, in order for this thing to be done. And I just remember reading that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. That is so freaking cool. And I was invested because these were my characters. And that was the picture in my head. So when I went into King in Black, I was like, okay, the stakes have to be big, right? This alien, deep space, alien darkness void threat is coming to Earth because I don't know why. I don't know why he's there. He's just conquering, I guess, and I was trying to understand character. Like, okay, so it's not a bad guy exploration. It's not like a Thanos exploration. It could be it could be an understanding of Eddie Brock. Nope. So what's the thing? What is the sacrifice that they're going to give up in order to, what is the thing that I'm going to get invested in so that in order for them to finally beat back this main bad guy? I don't know. Was Mark Hamill in the Guyver film? Was he in the live action? Maybe. Maybe he was. It was bait and switch. He was only a cameo. Oh, I see. Traditional art for the win. Yes, yes, I will do some, I promise. I love those Bristol boards. Not going to stop using it. Right on. I'm a huge proponent of that as well. I'm actually quite rusty when it comes to drawing traditionally, so I'm going to need to do a few warm-ups before I get to do it live in front of you guys, so I don't get made fun of too much. How's your battery life, Eric? My brushes distort when I have a cable plugged in. Also, hope that disable gesture option is working well for you. Was that you, Lex? Thank you so much. I owe you a huge debt of gratitude and a bunch of free stuff for showing me how to turn that shit off. And it's been doing great. As far as brush distortion, that happens to me too. A trick that's worked for me, and I don't know why, but I read it online somewhere, is that I keep my hand on this metal, on the metal outring of the iPad Pro, and somehow that staves off those weird random lines that go shooting off when it's plugged in. So I don't know if that works for you. I heard that it works for some, not for all. It's been working for me. Not a fan of King in Black. Null is just not a good character in my opinion. I don't remember if the first time that I saw Null come to Earth. Is that his name, Null? Cool name. And he started talking, but he was talking. I think he was talking like some weird dude bro, like he was talking like in Twitter talk. It's ridiculous. And I was like, or is that like just some weird burrito-induced nightmare? Anyway, I just remember reading him as a character and the choice of words that he was using. I was like, this is the world-ending threat. Again, not fair to King in Black. My expectation got the better of me. I take that on myself. Last question. Have you seen Gendy Tenra? Oh yeah. Gendy, the Primal is so freaking awesome. With very little dialogue, if any at all. So freaking awesome compositionally, emotionally, and there you go. Not a single word said, but I understand everybody's motivation. I understand what the heck is happening. At one point he was fighting a larger dinosaur with another dinosaur, and they communicated without talking. How freaking amazing is that, right? I quit Marvel and DC because of their pointless crossovers that disrupt the month-to-month continuity, and they usually suck. I don't know, man. I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had an answer for why they're doing it. My cynical side is like, they've got to find a way to keep moving those issues, right? To keep boosting issue sales by doing crossover or events, and that really, really freaking sucks because, let's say as a creative team, some of the not lesser known books per se, but not necessarily the ones that's going to be heavily impacted by a crossover, but there still needs to be a crossover somehow in your book because it's a company-wide event. It must be so frustrating to get any sort of momentum, and then out of nowhere you're like, oh, here comes something new that really I have to deal with for 2 months, but really can't necessarily invest in because my storyline is going somewhere else. That's got to be pretty frustrating creatively. So I feel for those creative teams. I feel bad for them. Page 1, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for joining me in the last 4 minutes of this stream. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, dude. Forge is a shaman. Right. That's what I remember. Joe Farron, how are you? Good evening. Again, thank you for joining me. I'm about to sign off in about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe as many as 10, but certainly thank you for being here. I appreciate your company. The real emotional weight, they don't know how to raise the stakes and foster a connection between readers and main characters. Again, I don't know. Comics has changed. Like, I remember I was watching Perch the other day. Was it Perch? No, I think it might have been Wes from Thinking Critical. And he had Breen on, and they were talking about how Avengers was written very differently in the time that Chris Claremont was writing X-Men. Because X-Men was more episodic, more like soap opera-ish, and Avengers, apparently, which I did not read back in the day, was more like maybe 2 issues, as many as 1 issue, and it was sort of like when I'm done, the adventures were done, right? I don't know how true that was, again. Forgive me, I didn't read it. But the point is, I don't know how Marvel Comics are written now, right? I grew up with the soap opera that was the X-Men. Multiple thread lines going on, and at the end of the year, there would be, at one point in the X-Men universe, in the time that I was reading them, it wouldn't happen every time that there was a big event. There would be an annual issue for sure, but it wasn't almost like every 8 months, every 9 months, there would be an event that would be happening. Unless I'm misremembering, unless like I really need a lot of brain medicine. But now it seems like there's one right after the other, which I have to think. Again, cynical mind in play. I have to think it has a lot to do with just like finding a way to sell comic books, because without it's like those kinds of things help move units, and it really sucks if that's the only way that they can think around that issue. That really, really sucks. I definitely don't think there was much stakes in King in Black. It felt like a big action thriller, whereas most development of Eddie Brock came outside from the events. It's been a while since I read Spider-Man or Venom, but I did I did download a bunch of Venom stuff leading into King in Black, so that's interesting. I'm a huge fan of Clay Mann's artwork, so I'm reading that Batman and Catwoman book, and I was watching another YouTube channel that talked about the last good Batman story arc was is it Court of Owls? So I downloaded that. I'm gonna read it. So I'm that far behind. I'm kind of like, there's a whole spectrum of, as far as years is concerned, a whole range of years. I'm like, oh, I'm reading this, and I'm also reading current, and I'm also reading this, but I'm also reading current. I downloaded a bunch of Daredevil stuff. I think this is by Chip Zdarsky. Download that. His backstory is just dumb. He's some cosmic force, but was the creator of the symbiotes. And he has wings, so now Venom has wings. Oh. Cool. My Expectations is Eric's version of Bless Her Heart. And it really is. That's the honest to goodness truth. But that's not something I don't think it's fair to project that onto a project. You know what I mean, William? I don't think it's fair to be like, here are my expectations, and you didn't live up to my expectations, therefore it sucks. That's not fair. So I take it upon myself to go like, here's what I thought of whenever I hear things like a big event, and it's my fault for expecting that out of this thing. I should have just read it for what it was. And so I have to go back and read it again and be like, okay, no, so now without those expectations, does this make sense to me? I don't know if it will, to be perfectly honest with you. It killed all mystery and uniqueness beyond the symbiotes. Hasn't that already been killed? Hasn't there been like 20 different symbiotes by now? I don't know if there's any mystery to it. Also, the chat has to be lagging behind massively for Eric because he's up to having stuff pop up 3 to 5 minutes later. I'm just reading it slow. I'm enjoying it like a fine wine. Thanks for the stream tonight. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you for being here. Marvel is just about their bottom line. Fans just the afterthought. That sucked. Although there are some okay book like Non-Stop Spider-Man. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like all of these books, and I was talking to somebody offline about this. I asked, like, of all these books that's getting all of this negative press, negative drama, all the stuff that everybody talks poorly about, that can't be all of Marvel's publishing, right? There's got to be books in their line that are really, really, really freaking good. And what's heartbreaking to me is that all of these books that are pushing their drama, pushing their agenda, pushing whatever it is that they're pushing, that's getting all of the attention and getting all this negative backlash, like, these books that are really, really good, and I heard that Daredevil is one of them, is not getting enough promotion. You know, because if you have a really good book out there, you would hope those are the books that you hold up and say, like, listen, we may have missed on X, Y, and Z, but this book right here, we want you to read this book. This book represents us the best. And it's really unfortunate that it's being overshadowed by all this silly shit that's happening. You know, all this underwhelming events, all these, again, that's me projecting, forgive me, like, all these books that are suboptimal, forgive that term, I part that over from my Twitch streaming days, but like all these books that are like suboptimal as an experience, you know, and that really sucks, because I suspect that not all of Marvel's books are embroiled in some weird drama. I'm sure there are books out there that are really, really good, and it's unfortunate they're not getting their due as far as promotion and readership is concerned. So I feel bad for those books. Daredevil has been so good. Chip Zdarsky is great. That's what I hear too. So I'm going to invest my time reading that book. I'm going to really sit down and read that book. And I don't know if you have a recommended issue that I should start. I don't know if I should start at issue 1 on Chip Zdarsky's run, if there is an issue 1, because apparently that's what Marvel does. Anytime that there's a new creative team, they just relaunch it, which doesn't make any sense. I grew up in a comic book reading age in which, oh, that person's run went from like this issue to this issue. Now a new set of people come in and they started on this issue to this issue. It made no sense to continuously relaunch it unless your part of your business model relies on that, you know, relaunch first issue bump, which is sad and tragic and borderline predatory. Marco Cicchetto is my favorite artist on the run so far. Is that the artist on Daredevil? I have it downloaded. I have, let's see, I have issue 1 through 3. I thought to myself, I'll give it 3 issues, and if it hooks me, then I'm on board. So there have really only been 3 symbiotes: Venom, Carnage, and Toxin. Everything else, some man-made garbage or anti-venom that was created by Mr. Negative. Those are characters. Mr. Negative is a great name for a character. Somebody's writing it. It's just like, what does I call this bad guy? Mr. Negative. Yes. Replicator is good, I hear. One more plug for Mr. Rob the Replicator Arnold. If we can get somebody to... Are my mods still here? Is Belle still here? Did Belle check out? If we can get another link to Rob's IGG campaign, that would be awesome. Null introduced lore for the symbiotes as his cosmic progeny that doesn't want to follow him, but don't. I'm so confused by that, and not any less confused am I after reading the book. I was really trying to hone in on, like, what are the stakes of this thing? What are the stakes of this series? What's the whole planet is covered in, like, the whole planet is covered in tar, right? Symbiote tar and darkness. I think the fans are tired of getting burned by having politics dropped into their favorite characters. That's the thing. I kind of want to push back on that, Peter. Yeah, sure, there's some, but those are the ones that are getting a lot of, the magnifying glass held above them, right? But I'm going to guess. I'm going to bet money. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to lose, right? I'm going to bet money that there are plenty of books in Marvel's publishing lineup that don't have any of that, but they're being overshadowed by all of that silliness, and that's really unfortunate. That's really, really unfortunate. Immortal Hulk from Al Ewing is great as well. Wait, I'm gonna text that to myself. My name is Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk. Okay. Got it. Tell you what, Black Monday Murders is amazing. Looking forward to new issues of Black Monday Murders. Okay. People are tired of being preached at in comics, in movies, in video games, in everything now. I do not support those that use story for an agenda instead of entertaining and respecting the reader, in my opinion. Yeah, and not to pivot this into my reason for doing ARC ATHENA. I just want to entertain. I just want to entertain you with a story. Because that's what I grew up with. And if you go back and read some issues of X-Men, there's some messaging going on in there, right? There's just unavoidable, right? Like, writers want to have characters who have a perspective on the world as it affects them, as it affects us in real life, right? But in my most recent reading, especially the ones that are like the known culprits for it, it's so heavy-handed. You know, it is the most obvious, on the nose, very low craft, very unnuanced way of presenting ideas. And that's really, really unfortunate. And the worst part is it's not even entertaining. That's the worst part. That's its worst crime, is that, you know, it's supposed to be fun, quote unquote, right? And that's like, you know, the seriousness of the Daredevils that I read back in the day when he's like in Hell's Kitchen beating up on gangsters and stuff. That's not like fun per se, but it was certainly like, whoa, that is so freaking cool. And by proxy, that's super entertaining to me. And then the few that I read, again, the really super culprity, that's awful. The culprity ones, it's unfortunate that it can't even be entertaining on top of all of that other stuff. Now, again, I want to emphasize this. What's most tragic to me, if this is true, is that there are books in Marvel's publishing lineup, I suspect, that are doing an amazing job, and they're getting overshadowed by all the silliness. That's really, really unfortunate, man, because those are the creators, in my opinion, those are the creators that you celebrate. You push that as a company. Like, look how good this stuff is, you know? I'd be interested to hear what you think about Daredevil. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to read that just as soon as I have free time, which is end of... You know, I take breaks in the middle of, like, after I pencil an entire issue for ARC ATHENA, I take a break. I take like 2 or 3 days off just so I can kind of cleanse the palette and start getting ready for inks. Off topic, but are you going to participate in the Draw This in Your Own Style challenge by J. Scott Campbell? I don't think so. So many things on my plate right now that I wish I could. That'd be so much fun, but if I do, I just end up trolling. And by the way, all my respect to that guy, all of my like admiration and respect, and I told him this, you know, I messaged him via Twitter when he put up something out. I respect the fact that he has that much longevity. I respect the fact that he has that much business acumen, and more importantly, that he's consistently trying to push it. You guys can't, maybe some of you can't see it, but I can. He's consistently pushing himself to get better within the context of his brand because he knows what sells. All right, so I'm so incredibly proud of him, and I know that he went through hell this week. But he did something most recently that really made me go, I'm so glad to know that guy. So everybody, here's a theory that I propose. And I think I said it on my friend's stream, but here's a theory I propose to you. When he went and did that fix the fix, or whatever it was, which made me laugh, and by the way, I don't care what you say, that's not punching down. Right? Basically what that person did by saying, hey, and you could read the post, they drew it better. They actually proclaimed that they drew it better than J. Scott Campbell. What that guy basically proclaimed is, I'm ready. If this was a boxing match, Mike Tyson is sitting in the middle of the ring, right? And you just got through doing like your crunch sessions in your local gym, and somehow you were like, yeah, that felt really, really good. I'm fucking ready, right? That's what you said by saying that I drew it better. So what you're saying is like, I can fight better than Mike Tyson. So you went into the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime, and he demolished you. because you proclaimed it. You were like, no, I'm right. I'm better than that guy. And J. Scott Campbell says, no, you're not. Not even close, right? So I like this conversation of like, oh, he's punching down. No, he's not, because that guy proclaimed himself to be better. It would be different if the guy is like, hey, I did my take on J. Scott Campbell. J. Scott Campbell took offense to it or whatever, took exception to it, and he decided to do what he did. But that's not what he did. Let's not fool ourselves into thinking that this guy put himself on a particular pedestal and a level of arrogance and said like, you know, I drew it better than J. Scott Campbell. Cool. That's not you've effectively said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for prime time. And Mike Tyson rocked you. Anyway. If you recognize how many people came out and said, and again, this is what I'm proposing to you. Tell me if this sounds stupid. I'm open for the conversation. As many people who came out in defense, or not necessarily in defense of that guy, but certainly to condemn the actions of J. Scott Campbell for actually doing that, right? Just as many professionals came to his aid, right? Or at least went to his side, because any professional who's had that done to them knows what that feels like. And everybody who's ever not said anything just kind of bit their tongues about it and said like, I can't do that because it's punching down. Here's J. Scott Campbell, and he said like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna go do it. And a bunch of professionals joined him. So for as many detractors that said like, J. Scott Campbell, that was so poor, that was such blah 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 of you, blah, 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 whatever, right? Just as many professionals said, actually, that's awesome, congratulations. And so now all of these sensitive types, and you know who they are, all of these sensitive types went like, fuck, we can't make him feel bad for doing that. So instead they pivoted, right? And they scoured through his comments and started pointing out the phantom bad guys. Right? That's a bad guy, that's a bad guy, that's a bad guy. J. Scott Campbell, you don't want to be a bad guy, do you? And naturally, because now it's not about this art anymore that's fully defensible, naturally they put him on his heels, and he was like, whoa, 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 definitely not into bad guys. And he had to write another statement. But the thing that I commend him for is that he took the time to listen. He was like, wait a second, everything that I've read about you, and by the way, I agree with him, there's a PR issue happening. Anyway, everything that I read about you says that you're this, but the handful of you that I've interacted with, he even wrote it himself. He was like, actually, they were very professional, cordial, not at all anything that I've come to understand or like come to, and I'm like, there it is. There is the critical mind that's going into, and God bless him for doing it, because most people would just stop at the damn articles. They actually engaged and found out for themselves, rather than sitting there with like a small chick with their mouths open getting shit shoved into it. He actually said, let me go figure this out for myself. And if he had come away from it, saying like, absolutely confirmed, everything that I read is exactly how these bad guys are, right? But lo and behold, there weren't. And J. Scott Campbell, to his credit, said, no. I take that back. That's my bad. That's my fault. I step away from that previous opinion that I knee-jerked into because people were telling me I should feel this way. Rather, I'm going to base my interactions with these specific people, not the cartoon blanket that you've thrown over them. I respect him so much for that. Because there's just so many people that I know, friends of mine included, or at least associates of mine, fellow professionals, who knee-jerk into that opinion without asking. I've had interactions behind the scenes from people asking me that, telling me that same exact thing. And I specifically said, which of these guys, what have these guys in specific, the ones that you're warding me off of, what have these guys in specific, what have they done that makes you go like, awful guys? And they're like, well, the blanket of them, they're all bad guys. And I'm like, in my interactions with these individuals, all we've ever talked about are campaigns, campaign strategy, art, and our overall enthusiasm for comics. At no point of the things that you charge them with in the most blanket, cartoonish, dehumanizing way, none of them have ever occupied that space, at least not with me. And I would rather judge a person individually and upon their character than say like, oh, because you are in the satellite, you are in the orbit of certain people, you must also be a awful human being. And the tragic thing is that person that reached out to me behind the scenes said, well, rather than that, I'd rather judge them by who they conduct themselves with. And I'm like, that's why things are broken. That's why we as an industry can't find a way to heal, because you're too busy turning people into cartoons. Because it's so much easier to do that. It's so much easier to have a blanket statement about people, or like, you know, a group of people, rather than going like, wait a second, let me find out for myself. Actually, it's so much easier to just like get the dirt on like some Google search, then go like, actually, you know what, maybe some of this is making sense. Maybe this guy isn't a bad guy. You know what I mean? And so my point being, I really appreciate the J. Scott Campbell as much. His week must have been crazy. But anyway, I respect him for doing what he ended up doing in the end, which is taking each individual and judging them by their character and conduct. I caught up. Holy cow, it's 15 minutes after 10. I don't disagree about Marvel DC having books that aren't preaching. My point is that fans don't want to get into a book and have it pivot. Okay, good point. Good point. If there's a if there's an expectancy of that book because of its brand and suddenly it switches and turns into something else, best advice that I can give you, step away from the book. Step away from the book. The only way they'll ever learn their lesson, ultimately, okay, it might not be immediately, but ultimately and long term, is your money. Your money is going to dictate that. Oh yeah, I answered this question already. Eric, thank you, man. Thank you, man. Good stream. I am inspired by your work. I followed you for years. You make me want to draw. Thank you so much. That is a huge, huge compliment to me. Remind me how fun it is. It is so much fun. And at the end of the day, it's like it's like if you land on something pretty fun, that is comics and the kind of stories that you want to draw, it never feels like work, which is great. JSC knows his audience. Yeah, he knows his brand. I'm happy that creators have platforms that allows them to publish projects that excite them. I'm with you. I believe that I finally have an opportunity to be able to do that, and by switching my metric to not immediately be about the cash or immediately about the monetary aspect, but just for the sake of creativity, I'm all on board. I'm so happy and so very lucky that we are now in a position in which we can do that. That was funny, and it actually gave the guy great free advice. JSC Fix was actually really good in my opinion, which was funny. Yep. Respect to JSC and stand your ground. They will never be happy with the work. Artists, remember, don't listen to the critics, just make art. I mean, honestly, I like JSC's fixed version of the piece. Shame I don't have $15,000 to buy it now. Yes, it is going nearly for $15,000 on eBay. Right on, good for him. And it's all going to charity, I think, yes? Last time I caught up with your stream, Mike Oeming was on your channel. Mike and I go way back, and I owe him a ton of I don't know if friendship can have points, but that guy has been such a huge advocate for my art, and he has always been a kind person to me whenever we're at shows, and obviously he was very, very kind for joining me on stream, so I owe him a ton. All the best of luck to him, because he's one of those guys that just works. You know what I mean? Head down, focused, getting the shit done. So I respect him so much for that. Much respect, Eric. Have a good night. Good night. Time to go pee. Still going. Actually, nope. This is it. I'm 21 minutes over. Thank you so much, everybody. Join me again next week, 8 p.m. Pacific time. If you'd like to get updates and behind the scenes stuff for my upcoming soon-to-be crowdfunded project. Actually, that makes it sound like it's inevitable. It's going to get crowdfunded. Soon-to-be launched crowdfunding project. ARC Athena, please go to my website, ericcanetti.com. Wait for a few seconds and the sign up for the newsletter will be there. If you're not already doing so, please follow me on my social media at Twitter under Eric Canetti, or on Instagram under instagram.com, Eric Canetti. And that is pretty much... Oh, if you want to buy some of my original art, including some of my sketchbooks, you can go to essentialsequential.com. Somewhere in the artist list is going to be my name. You're going to be able to see what's available there. So thank you ahead of time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. And I actually rendered a shoulder pad. So suck it, Rob Arnold. I did it. I rendered something. All right, you guys. Have a great evening, great morning, great afternoon. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Bye-bye.